Okay, let's dive right into this explainer, where we're going to objectively break down the invisible mechanics behind political messaging. It is absolutely fascinating how language can be literally engineered to persuade or mobilize a crowd. Today, we're using a really structured lens. First, we'll look at a peer-reviewed linguistic study of Donald Trump's 2017 inaugural address, and then we're going to take that exact academic framework and apply it to a hypothetical 2026 primetime address, just to see these strategies in action. So here's our roadmap for today. 1. The populist playbook. 2. Words, syntax, and rhetoric. 3. The 2026 primetime address. 4. Claims of election hacking. And finally, 5. The Save America Act.
All right, part 1, the populist playbook. Let's understand this anti-establishment style.
We're kicking things off with some scholarly research by Alisoy Hassan, which examines exactly how political identity is constructed through really deliberate language. You see, stylistic analysis doesn't just look at what is being said, it looks at how it's being said. It's kind of like looking under the hood of a car. It breaks down a speaker's toolkit to understand how they shape meaning and ultimately persuade an audience. Hassan's paper argues that a speaker's populist persona is strategically crafted through 3 distinct pillars. Lexical features are basically your building blocks, the actual vocabulary. Then you have syntactic structures, which is how you arrange those blocks. Are your sentences long and complex, or are they short and punchy? And finally, rhetorical devices. That's the stylistic flair, the repetition, the metaphors, the contrast that make the speech stick in your head. Together, these 3 pillars build a highly effective communicative style. Moving right along to part 2, words, syntax, and rhetoric. Let's see how the message actually gets built. The academic paper notes a very deliberate use of lexical simplicity. We're talking about basic, everyday vocabulary that is immediately accessible to absolutely everyone. But here's where the real magic happens. That simple vocabulary is heavily paired with inclusive pronouns. By constantly leaning on words like we, our, and us instead of I or me, the speaker rhetorically steps down from the podium and stands right there in the crowd. It establishes immediate solidarity and a powerful in-group mentality. You aren't just listening to a leader anymore. You are part of a collective movement.
And that brings us to antithesis. Now, this is a classical rhetorical technique that juxtaposes contrasting ideas. And research points out that it's practically a cornerstone of populist rhetoric. It sets up a stark black and white contrast. You have the ordinary citizens, the us, versus an elite establishment, the them. Suddenly, really complex, nuanced issues are distilled down into a highly emotional, easy-to-understand narrative of the people versus the powerful.
Notice the phrasing in that quote, we will. Think about how that syntax conveys leadership. There's no complex hedging going on there. Linguists actually call this a high modality construction. It doesn't say we might or we hope to, it says we will. That projects absolute certainty, determination, and a forward-looking promise. This kind of syntactic decisiveness inspires confidence and leaves zero room for ambiguity. So, having unpacked the linguistic science of all this, the simple lexis, the declarative syntax, the antithesis, let's shift gears a bit. We're going to take this exact academic lens and apply it to the transcript of a hypothetical July 16, 2026 primetime address. Let's see what happens when form meets function. Part 3, the 2026 primetime address. It's time to apply the playbook. Right out of the gate, this hypothetical address outlines a massive litany of achievements. It points to plummeting inflation, eliminated taxes on tips and Social Security, and record-breaking stock markets. Stylistically, notice the absolute terms and superlatives being used. Largest, record high, zero. It utilizes that exact high modality confidence we just looked at in the academic study. It's painting a vivid, uncompromising picture of an America that is back, strong, and winning. Following this highly optimistic framing, the address executes a classic problem-solution pivot. It uses the premise that no country could be great without fair and honest elections as a rhetorical hinge. The speaker essentially transitions from celebrating all these national victories to introducing a major, urgent national security challenge that threatens to undermine everything they've just celebrated.
Which leads us perfectly into part 4, claims of election hacking. This is the core conflict. To truly land the sheer scale of this claim, the speaker drops a staggering number, 220 million. The text states that starting in 2020, China acquired 220 million U.S. voter files. That includes names, addresses, phone numbers, and political party preferences. By presenting this colossal, highly specific figure, the rhetoric instantly shifts from an abstract warning to a very concrete nightmare.
And right here, we see that us versus them antithesis back in full force. The speech alleges a massive cover-up by rogue bureaucrats and the deep state. The claim is that officials actively suppressed vital security information from both the president and the American public in order to undermine the administration. To bolster these serious allegations, the address quotes directly from what it presents as a declassified CIA document. It asserts that China's strategy was actively focused on undermining the administration because of its policies on tariffs and military buildup. By reading supposedly raw intelligence into the public record, the speaker uses authoritative evidence to solidify the narrative of a targeted foreign conspiracy. Utilizing that pylon effect we studied earlier, the speaker stacks specific, compounding vulnerabilities one right after another. Centralized databases exposed, voting machines hacked, non-citizens on the voter rolls. Syntactically, this builds incredible rhetorical momentum, crafting a narrative of an entirely broken and defenseless election system. Now for Part 5, the Save America Act, the structural solution to the problem.
To counter this crisis, the address pivots to what it calls the Save America Act. Notice how a seemingly complex problem is met with highly accessible solutions. Mandate photo ID, require proof of citizenship, eliminate mail-in ballots. This perfectly mirrors the lexical simplicity we discussed earlier. It's a common-sense overhaul that anyone can grasp, rather than a dense 500-page policy white paper.
Embodying the direct audience engagement strategy identified in Hassan's academic study, the transcript ends not with a passive summary, but with a really powerful call to action. By urging citizens to literally pick up their phones and pressure Congress, the speaker uses imperatives to mobilize the in-group. It effectively transforms the audience from passive listeners into active participants in the political narrative.
And honestly, this is exactly why understanding the mechanics of rhetoric is so absolutely crucial. It's never just about the surface-level claims, it's about the invisible scaffolding holding those claims up. So the next time you listen to a major political address, no matter who happens to be at the podium, ask yourself, how is the syntax, the vocabulary, and the contrast framing my reality right now? Keep an ear out for the playbook, because once you see the architecture of persuasion, you can never really unsee it.